What would you do if staying silent meant betraying the person who sacrificed everything for you? The laughter exploded before the sentence was even finished. If you can translate what he just said, I will hand you my job, and I will give your mother my paycheck too, Ricardo Montero said, his voice loud, confident, cruel. Around the polished table inside the Thompson mansion, expensive suits leaned back in amusement. Glass walls reflected power, money, and entitlement. No one challenged him. A Chinese businessman named Qin had been speaking in Mandarin for several minutes, frustration clear in his gestures. The interpreter was gone. The deal was collapsing. And the room was turning desperation into mockery. Carmen Silva stood near the table, holding a silver tray, her posture trained to disappear. 48 years old. 7 years of silent work in this house. She lowered her eyes, the way survival had taught her. I am sorry, Mr. Ricardo, she said softly. I do not understand Chinese. Laughter followed instantly. Ricardo enjoyed it. He always did. Come on, Carmen, he continued, smiling like a man who had never been told no. A woman like you must have picked up Mandarin while scrubbing floors, right? Even William Thompson forced a nervous chuckle. Millions were at stake, but dignity was cheaper. Qin did not laugh. His jaw tightened. His patience thinned. He felt the disrespect clearly, even without understanding every word. In the hallway, just outside the door, someone was listening. Letitia. 22 years old. Backpack on her shoulder. Home early from college. She watched her mother become the joke again. Ricardo leaned forward, enjoying the moment. If your maid can translate what Mr. Qin said, I will give her my job. Right now. Right here. The room laughed harder. In their eyes, the idea was impossible. A black maid competing with a vice president. Comedy. Carmen remained still. Silent. Small. But in the hallway, Letitia felt something settle inside her. Not fear. Not hesitation. Decision. Because Ricardo Montero had no idea who was listening. He had no idea that Carmen's daughter spoke Mandarin fluently. He had no idea that every insult had been fuel. And he had no idea that in a few seconds, everything in that room was about to change. Before we go on, if this story is already making you feel something, take a second and subscribe to the channel. We share true stories about courage, dignity, and moments that change lives forever. And now, let's continue. Ricardo was not done. He was enjoying himself too much to stop now, not when everyone was watching and he felt like the king of the room. You know what, William, he continued, standing up from his Italian leather chair like he owned the place. Let's make it even more interesting. If your maid can translate even one sentence of what Mr. Qin said, I will give her my job, and I will pay for her daughter's college education. The laughter came harder this time. Louder. Meaner. The image of Carmen Silva, a woman they treated like furniture, suddenly sitting in an executive office, was so absurd to them it felt impossible. Even Qin, who did not fully follow the English, sensed the mockery in their tone. His expression tightened. His patience was thinning by the second. William Thompson, desperate to salvage the deal, waved Carmen closer, like she was part of a performance he could control. Come here, Carmen. Let's end this joke. His voice carried that familiar condescending edge, the voice of a man who treated employees as entertainment for guests. Carmen stepped into the center of the room, tray now empty in her hands, and felt every gaze pin her down. 7 years in that house. 7 years of being ignored. And now she was being turned into a spectacle. Mr. William, I really do not understand Chinese, she said softly, fighting to keep her dignity intact. Of course you do not, Ricardo said, clapping like he was applauding a comedian. But try anyway. Go on. Say anything in Chinese. I am sure Mr. Qin will love your interpretation. From the hallway, Letitia watched every second. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from rage that had been building for years, controlled, disciplined, and ready. She remembered the exact day she made her decision. The day she heard Ricardo tell William that people like that never try to improve, that they never make an effort to grow. Back then, Letitia had just earned a partial scholarship for international relations. She worked overnight shifts at a bakery to cover the rest. She studied when her eyes burned and her body begged for sleep. When she learned Thompson Enterprises wanted to expand into the Asian market, she chose her weapon. Mandarin. Not for fun. Not for pride. For her mother. For every time Carmen had been laughed at. For every time Carmen swallowed humiliation because she had bills to pay. Letitia learned in secret. She woke up before sunrise every day and studied before work. She watched free lessons online. She practiced pronunciation alone, staring into the mirror, correcting herself until the sounds came out clean. All because she had promised herself one thing. One day, she would prove that competence has no color, no social class, and no surname. In the meeting room, Ricardo leaned in, irritated now, as if Carmen's quiet resistance offended him. "What are you waiting for, Carmen?" he snapped. "Or are you going to admit you are just another unqualified maid who will never leave the place where she was born?" The words cut the air like a blade. And Chin, who understood more than they thought, felt something hot rise in his chest. In his culture, public disrespect, especially toward an older person, was not a joke. It was disgrace. Carmen lowered her eyes, not because she believed him, but because it was the survival move she had mastered long ago. Make yourself small, and sometimes the predators get bored. "I am sorry, Mr. Ricardo," she whispered. "You are right." "Of course I am right," Ricardo said, thrilled to hear it. "That is the difference between us and you. We prepare. We study. We get qualified. You just wait for opportunities to fall from the sky." In the hallway, Letitia's jaw tightened. Because Ricardo had no idea he was talking about her. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Ricardo smiled, satisfied, as if he had just delivered the final blow. In his mind, the moment was over. The joke had landed. The hierarchy had been restored. That was when the door opened. The sound was soft, almost polite, but it cut through the tension like a knife. Every head turned. Letitia stepped inside. She was calm. Too calm. Her backpack hung from one shoulder, her posture straight, her expression controlled. She did not rush. She did not apologize. She simply walked in as if she belonged there. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clear and steady. William frowned. This was not part of the plan. This was not scheduled. This was not acceptable. "This is a private meeting, young lady," he snapped. "Who are you?" Letitia did not look at him first. She looked at her mother. Carmen froze. Her heart stopped for a second. Letitia was not supposed to be there. Not like this. Not now. "Mama," Letitia said softly. "You can step aside." Carmen's eyes widened. Fear flashed across her face. She had spent her entire life protecting her daughter from rooms like this. From men like these. "Letitia, no," she whispered. But Letitia was already moving. She turned toward Chin, who watched her with curiosity, then with surprise. She spoke. Perfect Mandarin. Clear. Polished. Respectful. She translated every word he had said. Not just the meaning, but the tone. The frustration. The cultural nuance. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. The room stopped breathing. Ricardo's smile collapsed. William's face drained of color. Chin's eyes widened, then softened, then filled with something unexpected. Respect. Letitia finished, then added something of her own. A brief apology, in Mandarin, for the disrespect he had experienced. She acknowledged the mistake. She took responsibility, even though it was not hers to take. Chin stood up slowly. He spoke again, this time calmer. Letitia translated every sentence flawlessly. When he finished, he turned directly to her. "Where did you learn Mandarin?" he asked, in English now, his voice measured. Letitia met his gaze without fear. "I studied international relations," she replied. "Asian markets. I have been preparing for this industry for years." Chin nodded. Then he turned to William. "If she is not part of your negotiation team," he said, "I will not sign anything today." The words hit like thunder. William swallowed hard. Ricardo opened his mouth. No sound came out. Carmen stood frozen, tears forming in her eyes, not from humiliation this time, but from something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Pride. Her daughter had just walked into a room where she was never invited. And taking control. Ricardo finally found his voice. "This is ridiculous," he snapped, standing up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "This meeting is not a charity show. She has no credentials. No experience. She is nobody." Letitia did not react. She did not need to. Chin looked at Ricardo, then at William, then back at Letitia. "Experience can be trained," Chin said calmly. "Respect cannot." The room felt smaller. William wiped his forehead. The deal was hanging by a thread, and everyone knew it. "Letitia," he said carefully, trying to regain control. "Do you have any formal proof of your qualifications?" Letitia reached into her backpack and pulled out a neatly organized folder. She handed it over. "Transcripts. Certifications. Language proficiency exams. Internship records. Market research reports she had written on Asian real estate expansion." William flipped through the pages, his expression shifting with every document. Ricardo leaned over his shoulder, panic creeping into his eyes. "This is impossible," he muttered. "She is lying." Chin extended his hand. "May I see?" William handed the folder over without hesitation. Chin reviewed everything silently. Then he smiled. "You prepared well," he said to Letitia. "Very well." Then he turned back to William. "I will sign the contract. On one condition." William straightened instantly. "Anything. She joins the negotiation team." Immediately. The air left Ricardo's lungs. "That is unacceptable," he shouted. "You cannot just replace me with her." Chin's gaze hardened. "I am not replacing you," he said. "I am choosing competence." Silence. Ricardo looked around the room, searching for support. There was none. William cleared his throat. "Ricardo, we will discuss your position later." Later. The word echoed. Letitia felt her mother's hand grip her arm. Carmen was shaking now, but not from fear. From disbelief. Years of cleaning other people's success. And now her daughter was standing in it. Chin extended his hand to Letitia. "Welcome to the table." Letitia shook it. She did not smile. She was thinking of every early morning, every night shift, every humiliation her mother had swallowed so she could stand here today. And she knew. This was only the beginning. The meeting ended shortly after. Contracts were signed. Handshakes were exchanged. Smiles returned, but they were different now. Forced. Uncertain. Ricardo stayed behind. He stood near the window, staring at the city below, his reflection fractured in the glass. The room that once felt like his kingdom now felt foreign. Letitia gathered her papers calmly. Carmen hovered beside her, unsure of where she was allowed to stand, unsure of who she was allowed to be now. William approached them. "Carmen," he said, clearing his throat. "You can take the rest of the day off. Paid." She nodded, still stunned. Then he turned to Letitia. "You start tomorrow morning," he said. 8 sharp. We will brief you on the Asian expansion strategy." Letitia nodded once. Thank you. William hesitated, then added quietly. And good work. Those two words had cost Carmen 7 years to hear. Ricardo laughed bitterly. Good work, he repeated. From a girl who was hiding in the hallway. Letitia turned toward him for the first time. I was not hiding, she said evenly. I was listening. Ricardo scoffed. You think this changes anything? You got lucky. That is all. One moment does not rewrite reality. Letitia held his gaze. No, she replied. But it reveals it. Carmen reached for her daughter's hand. Let's go home, Mija. As they walked out of the mansion together, the halls felt different. The walls were the same. The floor still shined. But the weight was gone. Outside, the sun was setting. Carmen stopped, turned to her daughter, and finally let the tears fall. I am sorry, she whispered. For every time I told you to stay quiet. For every time I told you not to dream too loud. Letitia hugged her tightly. You did not make me small, Mama, she said. You made me strong. Inside the mansion, Ricardo sat alone. And for the first time in his career, power slipped through his fingers. Not taken. Earned by someone he never saw coming. The next morning, Letitia walked into Thompson Enterprises through the front entrance. No uniform. No tray. No apology in her posture. She wore a simple blazer, her head high, her steps steady. People stared. Some recognized her from the meeting. Others whispered, confused by the presence of a young woman who did not fit their mental image of an executive. Ricardo was already there. He watched her enter, his jaw tight. She took a seat at the table. Not beside her mother. Beside the decision-makers. The briefing began. Charts. Numbers. Projections. Letitia listened closely, then spoke. Her analysis was sharp. Her questions precise. Her understanding of cultural negotiation dynamics impressed even the most seasoned executives. Chin joined via video call. He greeted Letitia first. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chin. Ricardo said nothing. By the end of the meeting, William leaned back, exhaling slowly. We have been underestimating a lot of people, he admitted. Letitia did not respond. She was already working. Weeks passed. Ricardo's influence shrank. Letitia's grew. Not because she demanded it. Because she earned it. And Carmen? Carmen no longer served coffee during meetings. She attended them. Not as staff. As a guest. Because her daughter insisted. Every time Carmen hesitated, Letitia would remind her. You belong in every room where your sacrifices built the floor. And slowly, Carmen began to believe it. The change did not go unnoticed. Whispers followed Letitia down hallways. Some filled with admiration. Others with resentment. She was young. She was confident. And she had entered a space that many believed was not meant for her. Ricardo watched it all from a distance. Meetings he once led were now scheduled without him. Decisions he used to influence were finalized before he even entered the room. One afternoon, he confronted William. You are making a mistake, Ricardo said, his voice tight with controlled anger. She is inexperienced. She will fail. And when she does, this company will pay the price. William did not look up from his screen. She has already delivered results, he replied calmly. That contract alone secured our expansion for the next 5 years. Ricardo clenched his fists. She does not belong here. William finally looked at him. Neither did I, when I started, he said. But someone gave me a chance. The words landed harder than any insult. Ricardo walked away. Meanwhile, Letitia thrived. She built bridges, not walls. She listened more than she spoke. And when she spoke, people listened. Chin requested her presence in every negotiation. Other partners followed. Her name started appearing in internal reports, in emails, in conversations that shaped the future of the company. One evening, Carmen waited for her daughter in the lobby. She watched Letitia walk toward her, confident, respected, visible. And she realized something that made her chest ache. All those years she thought she was protecting her daughter by teaching her to stay quiet. But Letitia had learned something better. How to speak when it mattered. Carmen smiled. The world was changing. And for once, it felt like it was changing in their favor. Ricardo's breaking point came quietly. No shouting. No dramatic exit. Just a letter. Human Resources requested a meeting. Restructuring, they called it. Ricardo listened as his role was redefined. Reduced. Stripped of authority. Not fired. But no longer feared. He signed the documents in silence. As he left the building, he passed Letitia in the hallway. She nodded politely. Nothing more. That hurt more than anger ever could. Months later, Thompson Enterprises announced record growth in the Asian market. Industry magazines highlighted the expansion strategy. One article mentioned a young analyst fluent in Mandarin who had redefined cross-cultural negotiations. Letitia framed it. Carmen hung it in their living room. Not as proof. As gratitude. One evening, Letitia returned home to find her mother at the table, studying English textbooks. "What are you doing, Mama?" Carmen smiled shyly. "I want to learn," she said. "I want to understand more of the world you work in." Letitia sat beside her. And together, they studied. No hierarchy. No silence. Just two women who had learned that dignity is not given. It is claimed. And once claimed, it changes everything. Years later, Letitia stood in front of a room that looked very different from the one where it all began. The glass walls were still there. The polished table too. But the faces around it had changed. Diverse. Focused. Listening. Letitia led the meeting. She spoke with confidence, not arrogance. With authority, not cruelty. On the wall behind her, a global map displayed partnerships across continents. At the end of the presentation, a young intern raised her hand. "Can I ask you something?" Letitia smiled. "Of course." "How did you know you were ready to speak up that day?" Letitia paused. She glanced at the back of the room. Carmen was there, seated comfortably, watching her with quiet pride. "I did not know," Letitia answered honestly. "I just knew that staying silent would cost more." The room nodded. After the meeting, Carmen hugged her daughter. "You changed my life," she whispered. Letitia shook her head gently. "No, Mama. You changed mine first." Outside, the city moved as always. But somewhere between boardrooms and hallways, between silence and voice, a line had been crossed. And it could never be uncrossed again. Because when competence speaks, prejudice loses its voice. And when one woman stands up, she leaves the door open for many more.